Hello dear friends beekeepers. You can see this swarm bait device here. How is it made? Plywood is taken or chipboard is not thick, the canvas that covers the ceiling of the hives is used. I added a little propolis, warmed it up so that there was more smell. I have such things hanging in several places. The rack is also wrapped with a canvas and treated with propolis to lure bees. You see bees swarming around from above, so that it does not get wet and does not spoil and does not warp and does not bend. The film is made. You see, this film is fixed with a stapler and it is put on a wire hook so that it is convenient to shoot without any problems. Let's move on here, where a swarm took off just 2 minutes ago. Here is the second trap we have. You can clearly see that the swarm is so big, about 3 or 4 kilograms, that even the trap was slightly skewed, but this did not prevent the swarm from landing. So friends figured it out. I just showed you that a huge swarm flew out. Why did I put the uterus in the isolation ward? In order to mark the new uterus with a marker and release it to the family. Also, I already clearly know that I need to plant a swarm in a completely different house. Here she is, the uterus is running, a good beautiful uterus, swarming and non-fecal. Therefore, we will just successfully leave it now in this hive. Now I'm going to mark the uterus. I can show you how it's done. Now I'll mark the uterus. We mark it with a proofreader. I'll clarify later why only with a proofreader and nothing else. It is desirable, of course, to mark the uterus with a different color, but those that are sold in online stores, I categorically refused these markers. I'll explain why now. Now I will mark so that the back fits into this mesh. Carefully wipe your corrector, which is water-based. It is completely safe for the uterus, and we make a mesh on the back carefully. That's it, the label is made white, since there are no correctors of other colors. That's why I make it white. So the uterus is ready, now it will dry up and we will put it in the hive, but in the meantime I will tell you about these correctors. I bought all the colors to match the year, but I refused all these markers, although these markers are expensive. I am well acquainted with all the paints and I can tell by the smell what they are, whether they are an aqueous base, whether acrylic or nitro. These markers, for which I bought and spent quite a decent amount of money, turned out to be all based on nitro. If we mark queens with nitro color with these markers that are for beekeepers, then there is a guarantee that our queens will simply become disabled and it is not clear what will happen to them. Therefore, I mark all the uterus with white. So, it dries well, holds well and is clearly visible. And by years, to figure out what year the uterus came out, you just need to write it down. The hive was recorded, and the year of the uterus was recorded. The uterus has dried up and I am releasing it into the family. Everything went, the uterus went cheerfully. So famously darted between the frames. That's it, the uterus is planted. Not flown, but flown later. She will continue to work with Roy and we will deal with it now. Further, the swarm, as you noticed, is huge, so we will not put it in the PPS of the house, we will put it in a sunbed, where there are a lot of frames. Because this swarm is like the neighboring swarm that also flew out, and we will have them planted as donors. For what? We will take the dry without brood, substitute the wax and take the dry if necessary. We will need a brood, we will take a sealed brood, but we will not allow these houses to develop. We will just maintain the viability of these two houses. They will simply be called donors. Also, we must thoroughly treat the hive with a gas burner so that there is no bacillus lurking in the corners and does not harm the future family. We burn well and thoroughly. We process thermally and burn the kids too. We are preparing a hive for planting a swarm. This is a feed frame. I will process it with a fresh syrup 1:1 water and sugar. We process each frame and wax, too. I walked a little with a syrup. For what? In order for the bees to immediately sit on them and switch to work. So, we have prepared everything for the landing of the swarm. On both sides it is necessary to put warm partitions, foam plastic. It is necessary to paste it necessarily from the working side, otherwise bees gnaw. Everyone has probably already experienced this. I put a stern frame on the south side. The frame is serious, 3-4 kilograms. Next comes our wax. One frame will be dry, so that the uterus immediately begins to sow, and next to it we will put a frame with a neighboring family and with an open brood. In order for the swarm not to fly away, in case he doesn't like something. In any case, he will not throw the brood, it has already been tested for years. We have left this gap for brood. Now I will bring a swarm, but first I will take an open brood from another family. Why don't I put it right away? I'm afraid it's cool today. The open brood without bees will get cold. This thing is very convenient for catching swarms. We have never had a swarm fly away from the yard. So I calmly pick it up and carefully remove it from the tree. The swarm is very heavy, unusual, more than 4 kilograms. A rare swarm in its weight. And now we are going to the place where we will plant the swarm. We have a complete framework. Our task now is to shake off all these bees lightly and confidently on the frames. Look at how many bees there are. And now determine the strength of this swarm. We have to give him time to get into the frame, calm down a little and then close it. We shook off the swarm. We got 2, 4, 6, 9 frames and almost all the bees were distributed. Now our task is just to cover it. Cover and slightly insulate. Insulate with a blanket. Here we have a blanket folded into 3 or 4 parts. We completely close the nest together with the side spaces so that the heat does not go away and the uterus begins to sow immediately. Now I want to show you this device simply and in detail. Here you see a canvas cut out, well treated with propolis. I added more propolis, melted it with a lamp. The smell radiates well from it. And we have such a thick film on top, choose a thick one, so that the plywood does not bend and does not spoil. At first I wanted to insert it somewhere. I made these things, brackets. But I thought it was too complicated. It just hangs still. Alignment and misalignment are easily adjusted. Here you tie a loop, throw it on a tree and nothing else. There was no case that the swarm flew somewhere, flew into someone else's yard, to a neighbor or to another tree. It always works great. Today we have seen in practice that this is not unfounded. Swarm flew out of this house. The uterus should be seen in 2 weeks, how it flew around, whether it began to sow. There's no point before. You know that after the uterus has come out, a period of at least 2 weeks is needed. That's all, friends. If you liked the video, the whole process that we did today, write comments, make comments, ask questions and put likes. All the best to you and more honey.